History is something we cannot run away from. History is not only what we are taught by school books, by our teachers, parents, and grandparents. History always surrounds us, taking forms of art, buildings, and monuments. The Chișinău Jewish Cemetery is one of the places of history in the capital of Moldova. This place, a silent witness of life, death, and eternity, tells us the heartbreaking story of the Chișinău Jewish community. And to understand this story, I've decided to trace how has the image of the cemetery changed over 2 centuries of its existence. The earliest tombstones of the Jewish cemetery date back to the early 19th century. The tombstones from these times reflect the 19th century Jews' faithfulness to their traditions. All the writings on the early tombstones are done in Hebrew. The traditional epitaph includes 2 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, Pei and Nun, that are an abbreviation of words buried here, or Idman. Most often, the traditional abbreviation is completed with 5 letters that abbreviates the traditional blessing of the disease. Let his soul be tied in a knot of life. Times passed, and the 20th century arrived, bringing disaster for the Jewish people from its very start. In the year 1903, the Chișinău pogrom's happened. Starting from absurd accusations made up by the Serbian anti-Semitic ideologists and spreading like a forest fire, the senseless hate for Jews has broken out in a horrible massacre that took lives of dozens of innocents. A quarter of the Chișinău Jewish Cemetery is the place of burial of the victims of the massacre. Then, a much greater tragedy broke out in the 1940s. The World War II was raging, and Chișinău was occupied by Nazi forces. The Chișinău ghetto was organized, from which only 6 people out of 60 to 80,000 made it out alive. The killed people were not buried properly, and only little memorial plaques attached to some of the tombstones serve as a reminder of this terrible tragedy. These plaques have been attached to the tombstones of relatives of those who died in the war or went missing by their family members. The shocks of the first half of the 20th century have passed, and the Jewish community was never the same. All the writings on the tombstones dating from 1950s and later on are done mostly in Russia. The Jewish people were forced to abandon a big part of their own traditions due to anti-Semitic politics of the Soviet government. In late 1950s, early 1960s, the Soviet officials had religiously destroyed a big part of the Jewish cemetery's territory to set up a park. However, over time, the Jewish community has started to heal its wounds and return back to its roots and traditions. In the 1970s and later on, epitaphs in Hebrew started to appear from the Jewish cemetery again, indicating the cultural rebirth of the Jewish community. The history of Jewish people and their culture has known decades of humiliation and oppression, but it seems that today the Chișinău Jewish Cemetery is finally found its peace. Now, in place in proper, respectful silence, its old tombstones can tell us their thought-provoking story, a story of life, death, and eternity, a story that we have to preserve as a symbol of respect towards all the people who have been a part of it and who would want us to pass in memory undestroyed.